Welcome everybody as we build Captain Titus. Now, before we start, everybody pour out a drink for Captain Acheron and Lieutenant Chiron. Now, it's a shame that they had to kill off the characters. I mean, it was a little bit of an off-screen death, and probably people aren't that satisfied with it. They did leave a section in the 500 Worlds Titus lore book, so he at least had a little moment in there, but it wasn't expanded on from the previous Warhammer community post, so don't expect anything particularly new. Unfortunately, they passed away fighting Gene Stealers, or a Gene Stealer cult, and they locked themselves in so that reinforcements could get there and destroy the rest of the cult before Tyranids came and devoured them all. So, heroic sacrifice, sure. A little bit unnecessary, possibly. At least for Chiron. Chiron would have been a nice one to keep with us. Especially given that, we don't exactly have many people of colour in Warhammer, and he was a pretty cool character. You've got someone who's, pre-heresy and taken away in his youth, saw Calf, and never to be seen again. So, let's get into this build proper. Now, again, this is a Space Marine, so Captain Titus is not a difficult build. He has a few intricate parts. One thing that I will note, you'll notice on here, I don't glue on the cape, and I don't glue him to his base. This is just for ease of painting. So anyone out there that's thinking, I need to glue all this together, how do I access the back of his legs? Or, some of these sections are well hidden away. His cape is very good at concealing most of his back section. But it's still a useful thing, I think, just to be able to take off, paint up that detail. Again, you're artists, we're like fine woodmakers. We make sure the back of the closet looks as good as the front, even though no one's going to see the back of the closet. So the build itself, really quite simple and easy. As you can see, I just have a fairly regular bottle of plastic glue there. It just seeps in, capillary effects, and nice and easy. Nothing crazy. But the actual miniature himself is really well detailed. There's a lot of detail in his armour, as you would expect from any modern piece. So, any of you painters out there, you're going to have a lot of work just going through highlights. I mean, even his knee pad, it's got the Blade Guard veteran style. Don't know the best way to describe it, but those sort of like diamond sections that ingrain into the knee pad or the kneecap. So, there's a lot of highlighting potential for this model. You can paint him as basic or as advanced as you like. I will be doing a hyperlapsed version of me painting him because it will take a lot of time to get through this miniature. There is that much detail. The cape is going to take a lot of time on its own, which, again, another nice detail, having the fur elements of the shoulders and back over the red leather style cape. I think that's going to look amazing. So anyone out there who wants to see some of the advice on my reds, if you've seen my previous videos, my Ralderon, my Blood Angels, I have a very nice recipe for reds. But also if you watch my Ultramarines video, I really, really like painting capes. I think they look really fantastic, especially on blue Space Marines. Again, red and blue go together so well. So, back to building of this miniature. There is a significant number of parts. Nothing too crazy. His back with one leg is one piece. The front of another leg is a separate piece. And his head is obviously separate. His cape is in 3 pieces. So one shoulder pad, the other shoulder pad, and then lastly the centre of his cape, which attaches to his backpack. So, power pack. Not quite a backpack, is it? But I've, for simplicity, not glued on his head. Again, it's a friction fit part, so once you've glued everything together nice and tight, it will just push in, and then you can take it off and glue it separately, have it all varnished up, and then re-add it back to the model. Now, his actual posing, because this is essentially a modern GW kit, which it's not best designed for kit bashing. And you absolutely can. It's just a more complex set of adjustments to build him how you like. But he is very much so designed to have that. I'm looking over the battlefield. I'm assessing what's happening rather than sort of what his raw stats are, which is more I'm going to punch everything and make it go away. So if any of you are wanting to make him a little bit more special, I would see what you could do between this miniature and the Lieutenant miniature. Now, unfortunately, because he's not sold separately from the Wardens, it means that if you did want to do a separate miniature, it's quite an expensive endeavour. I think that's a little bit unfortunate. I mean, I could also imagine Warhammer charging quite a small fortune to have him separate and his unit of Wardens as well. Yeah, so for me, I got this from a local friendly game store, so I got a bit of a discount. This with the 500 Worlds and Titus was about £88. That was from War Office Gaming Supplies. That's my local go-to. And, you know, I don't have an affiliate. This is just who I purchased mine from. But yeah, support your local friendly game stores. A lot of them are, you know, they're all small businesses trying to survive. And whilst we do have the likes of, you know, Element Games and a lot of very good online available warehouses where you can get access to really cheap Warhammer, sometimes you just have to go the extra mile. Make sure that you do have a local gaming store that's thriving so that you can keep going back and that you can keep, you know, playing with the local community and painting and gaming and, you know, there's more to this hobby than just saving all of the bucks and having no one to then play with. So please look after your local communities. It's something that I think is overlooked when we all look at Warhammer. Yes, the prices are extortionate, I think is not too far to say. To a degree, I also understand part of my multiple disciplines that I've followed through life. I do a bit of engineering work, including polishing tools, die-cast tools, so I understand the effort that goes into making a die-cast tool. Now, the die-cast tools that we make are not made to this standard. This standard that they produce at is incredibly difficult. Like, the levels of precision to create flash that you can scrape off lightly with your nail, that's a lot of effort. It's a lot of accuracy. It's a lot of building of components that have to fit together perfectly. And yes, we live in a digitalized world where we have CAM/CAD and everything is very accurate and we have some incredible machines that you can build with. It's still difficult. So yes, they are expensive, but when you look at the detail, you look at the accuracy, the finish, it's all a part of that process. And I think that Games Workshop, Warhammer, they do a great job of building in the UK. There's only a few books, and they tend to be the old hardbacks now, that are still made in China. A lot of the production now is coming over to the UK for the books. All the paper books are all paperbacks are now made in the UK. The hardbacks, I will have a look at this one. So I'll come back to you in another video, but I presume that these ones will be made in China. The campaign books usually are, but they're also usually hardback, and this one is, as you can see, paperback. They all are. Unless you got the collector's edition, in which case your 80 odd pounds did get you hardback, so yeah, the quality's there. Now, there were a few mould lines that required more than just a nail. If any of you want an extra tip with mould lines, if you don't want to use a blade or the back of your pliers, not pliers, what are they? My clippers, there we go. You can use plastic glue. Now, there's obviously a brush element to mine. Do not use like Citadel plastic glue just out of the bottle and just leave a blob there. That won't do a thing. But when you have like the Tamiya extra thin stuff, you can just brush it until it starts to melt. Be a little bit careful because you can leave in the brush strokes of the brush and that will leave a texture behind. But it's useful on certain miniatures where if you were to go in with a knife, you're going to cause more damage anyway. Again, not so much of a problem with Titus. Again, it's a new mold. I wouldn't expect it to be crazy. But it's really, really quite well designed in a way that your mold lines aren't too obvious. Again, the majority that I was scraping was on the back of his legs that are hidden. So again, it's very cleverly designed, which I think is part of the parcel of what we see a lot of now with Warhammer in general. And I think we can be a little bit overcritical with not just the pricing, but we forget the amount of work that goes into making these sprues. So, a big thank you to the people at Warhammer that do take the time and ensure that these tools are built to the highest of standards. I mean, they charge for it, so we should expect it. Now, every single one of the miniatures of the Wardens of Ultramar all have a scenic base. So if you didn't know, everyone's standing on a tactical rock of some form. It's good for the human auxiliaries because then they don't look like they're, 3 foot tall amongst 9 foot tall superhumans. So it's a good way to ensure that they don't look too wimpy next to the rest of your miniatures, because if an intercessor stands next to them, the intercessor should still be a little bit taller, but it shouldn't be like... You don't want your heroes to be the smallest characters in the world. Now, I will be building the other characters. Don't expect as big a video as this just for Captain Titus. I think most of my opinions are going to be brought out for this set, for this miniature. So I will be doing the rest of the unit as one, and we'll just hyperlapse them all together so you see the build in fast motion. For some of these characters, it doesn't look too complicated. Again, we're dealing with Space Marines. None of it's really complicated. Even Cato Sicarius, I saw a lot of complaints with Cato. I think that was a bit of an overreaction. The instructions were difficult. There was the wrong order, I think. And again, if you see my Cato Sicarius in my Ultramarines army, I do show the pieces that I've not glued on that you can get away with not gluing, including his cape and helmet. So you don't have to glue that section on. You can have it so it's free, and that way you can paint it separately, do a really nice job of it, click it back in, capillary effect with a bit of glue, then touch up any areas where it might have melted a bit of paint off, quickly varnish it all, and it's all done. Yeah, so I think with modern Warhammer kits, tolerances are so tight that you do get friction fit on quite a lot of components. So, again, it's things that we might take for granted. Now, I know a lot of people will use magnets for certain characters, certain models, so they can swap things out. I don't tend to be that kind of guy. I prefer pins and the old style sort of like friction fit if you can get away with it. Usually dabs of old Citadel glue so that it creates like a little extra tension. So, I personally, I don't like magnetizing too many things. Not that that's going to be a problem with this kit. Again, despite the complexity for Space Marines, this is very much so designed that everyone is monopose. If you bought two boxes of this kit, you're not going to have 7 very different looking miniatures. In fact, I think you would probably just about get away with Sergeant Marneus being a little more adjustable. I do believe his shoulder pads are set in a way that you can move him around a little bit. Now, a lot of people have made a mention on Facebook with him not having his axe. I don't know if this is as big a controversy as it needs to be. Yes, the axe was very cool. I would say it was iconic for him. and it would have been nice if they'd have carried on and had that continuity. But to be fair, I think a Space Marine is capable of using every weapon. So, here we are now with the final Captain Titus miniature. As you can see, he's put together nicely. There is a gap with his cape because it's not been glued on yet. Now, if you can and you've liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe. Leave any comments about what you want to see with the rest of the Wardens of Ultramar. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.